Dr. Araujo, I'm interested in your characterization of uh, the experiment um, in repositioning the IDB as a reliable lender in the region and offering credit to compete with China. And also your characterization, I recognize this is a security panel, but this piece interested me in your testimony, that the strategy has been shifting from finance to direct investment. And I'm curious, when we had a hearing last year on Africa, we looked at how companies started with extraction and then moved to building the roads and ports to be able to ship to China, and then building processing facilities adjacent to the mines, and then direct investment so that they could sell in the region. And I'm wondering if you or anybody else has sort of mapped a similar strategy of how they start and build out, and then in the process of building out, start to include security training and political education to kind of deepen their position. But I am curious about how you characterize the IDB, as I said, and then what you see as the steps in this strategy to intensify or deepen their position in Latin America. They being the Chinese, obviously. So.
Well, perfect. Argentina, for example, since 1959 have defaulted with the IMF several times. Until 2008, most of the countries in Latin America, they had no other option to look for credit other than the IMF, the World Bank, the IDB. But there was a structural problem in that didn't match the cultural, political format of Latin American politics. The demands, they were often structural, demanding administrations to cut civil servants, stop hiring civil servants, generate fiscal balance, generate monetary balance, monetary equilibrium. And this was death to several politicians at the region to the expense of solving the economic situations at that moment through the loans. When China emerged in 2008 as a major lender to the region, especially after the financial crisis, the expectations never entered the structural organizations of the local governments. I don't want you to change. I don't care if you change. I don't care how you're going to execute the loans that I'm giving to you. What I'm concerned is the guarantees that you can give back to me of how these loans will eventually be paid, whether they are through capital, whether they are through participation, through commodities, or through anything else. So China emerged as the flexible, fast option for several countries to be able to obtain loans. Initially, China's financing in the region, they were aimed specifically at infrastructure projects. However, China had very little control and very high frustration of the execution procedures in those countries of those projects that they financed. Given could have been for the quality of the services provided or the speed or corruption, etc. And this led them to make the shift into being partners or buying certain projects, assets, investing a lot in M&A, because this can put them in the forefront of the evaluation of several of these projects, which is different than financing. So the amount of loans have decreased, but loans from government to government, which basically in Venezuela, in Argentina, and a few other countries are used even to pay the daily payroll. This is something that occurs in a way that is different than the regular traditional financing of projects. And this is what gives China a major advantage. Because different than the United States, that you have the private sector independently and autonomous negotiating, and several other areas of the US government coordinating individually their relationship with Latin American countries, in China, you have one big channel that within the same conversation, you can change topics and intertwine them at the end of the conversation, allowing them to have cross issues and cross themes within the same negotiation. For example, the necessity for Brazil to have active pharmaceutical ingredients is intertwined with Brazil's decision to maintain or not Huawei as a supplier for the 5G tender. Because this is, they both fall within the spectrum of good relations. So why am I going to open an exception and send you APIs if you're not helping me in the other point, in the other end? This is hard to happen here because the US would never involve a negotiation with AstraZeneca and at the same time with AT&T or Verizon mixed within the same framework of conversation. And this fits well the Latin American countries, mostly those with centralized government, low institutionality, allowing this sort of cross-sectioned negotiations and conversations to be more efficient.